Hi, I'm Bill Lancaster, and I'll be your host for this video on using a vacuum chuck. I've used a vacuum chuck for a number of years. It was owned by our Woodworkers Guild. It was assembled by a friend of mine who did a similar thing to what I'm doing. And I had this at the Guild for a long time, and now I've got one at my house. As of yesterday, I bought a vacuum chuck. So I want to show you how I've got it set up. I have a few special features on it that you don't get with it ordinarily, but I'll show you what you get when you buy one of these things. I got mine from the Frugal Vac. It's called the frugalvac.com, frugalvacuum.com, and a guy named Bob Leonard runs it. When you get it, you get this nice motor with it. You get this muffler. You get a filter that filters out sawdust. You get this gauge that shows you the pressure. You get a relief valve. And the relief valve is closed or open, and so I'm going to close it for now. And then you get this long hose, which is through which the vacuum runs. And when you run this, come up through the hose, I've got it set up into a thing which is a vacuum adapter. This thing right here is a vacuum adapter. This is not something that you get from Bob Leonard and the Frugal Vacuum. I got this from Packard Tools in Tryon, North Carolina. But you'll see if I turn the lathe on, that spins, but the hose stays still. So the vacuum goes through here and out the spindle on the other side. So that's where the vacuum is drawn through, right there. And then if you get the Bob Leary system, what you get is one of these. It's a vacuum chuck, as you can see, with a base on it made of composite and a tube that goes into it. And the tube attaches to this bearing inside the chuck, and that bearing will spin as the chuck spins. It goes on like that, and there's a long tube that goes right through the spindle and out the back, and you hook your vacuum tube to it. You do not have one of these adapters like I have on here. Instead, you have this other system. So what I've got is this system that I put together, and with it I had to make some vacuum chucks, which are these things. You can buy an aluminum base for these PVC connectors, and I couldn't find an aluminum base, so I made this wooden one. This is hard maple, and I had to put this little groove in the end of it that will fit the flange in the spindle. So you got to make this thing fit flat against the base for it to spin true. The whole thing here is for this thing to spin true. So you screw this also, this junction between the wood and the PVC has got to be cut on the lathe so that it's straight. You want this PVC to base itself against that shoulder and be spin true. So I'm going to try to screw this thing on and give it a little test. You have to make sure it's spinning true, and then you also want the rim of it. That's good. Want this rim of it to be perfectly smooth, and this one has some roughness to it. In the beginning, it actually had some writing on it, and now it's got this sort of a roughness to it. I'm going to take a bowl gouge and just kind of smooth that up. I'm going to mount this camera on this microphone stand, so that hopefully you can see it, and I can also use two hands. That's the whole idea here. So let me get this thing aimed right. Well, come on, baby. Why aren't you doing right? Okay, I think I've got it. Now I'm going to, oh, I forgot to tell you, you make the threads with this Beal spindle tap, which is a device that matches the spindle on your lathe, and you can then make those threads in wood. Now, I want to make sure this is absolutely true. I'm going to put my face shield on and make sure that's true. I've got it running at about 500. I don't want to do too much. I just want to come in here and just trim off that little edge like so. Well, I'm putting some grooves in it. Let me try a scraper tool instead. Hang on a second. This is a negative rake scraper. It's pretty sharp. That vibration you hear, that sound is a vibration, and that's what's causing this. I'm going to raise this tool rest a tad and go in on it closer. Let's see if I can do it again. Faster. Now you see I still got the vibration, but it's better. Okay, that's acceptable. Now let me put this down and back this off a little bit. Now that is the chuck. Now what you have to do with that chuck is you mount your bowl on it. So there's another gizmo you can get that's really, really great. It's called a chuck reverse, and it's this thing. It's got a Morse taper on the end, so it goes into the tailstock, and you screw a chuck on this end of it, and you can put that in your bowl. So your bowl can then be put absolutely centered in the vacuum chuck. Now, this is my chuck. I'm just going to screw this into the chuck. And put that in the tailstock. There we go. Now I'm going to put the bowl on there. And this bowl, this is a gorgeous cherry bowl I'm making to give to the Cancer Survivors Park for their auction. It's wood that came from that Cancer Survivors Park. So it's kind of unique. I'm really a little hesitant to risk doing it on the first time on this system, and we will see. Now I always mark my my bowls. You see that little pencil mark there? That shows me that goes into the number 1 jaw. And so the number 1 jaw on this Vic Mark chuck is right there. So I'm going to tighten that up there. It doesn't have to be too tight. What you really want here is you want this to be centered when you put this onto the vacuum chuck. And one other thing you have to do is you have to put a piece of foam on the vacuum chuck, which is this. It's called Silly Winks. I buy this at Hobby Lobby. So I'm going to put this foam on the vacuum chuck so that it will not damage the bowl. Let me get a scissors and I'll cut this thing up. I know I should have done this before the video. Make sure I get this big enough. This material that you get from Hobby Lobby has a little sticky surface on the back. Now Bob Winter doesn't like this stuff. He'll give you some without the sticky on it. But the problem with the sticky is it sticks so well that you have to cut it off with a putty knife or something. So I'm going to just take this easy. Take this off, put it on the vacuum chuck like that, and then you got to punch a hole in it. You want that vacuum to be pulled through the foam. So I've got a hole in it. Now, all I have to do now is turn on the vacuum and put the bowl on there and then back this off. So I'm turning the vacuum on. And I'm going to crank the bowl against it. Make sure this is seated right there. Now I can see the meter, but you can't see. I'm pulling about 20 kilograms, which I think is enough. I would like to see more, like 22, but I've got 20. Then you take this off. You have to remember that this does not spin. This chuck does not spin. It just lets you place the bowl there. So now I'm going to back this off and leave the bowl attached. Now I'm also going to take this tailstock away so I can get to this to make the cuts and the sanding. So I'm taking this away, you see. Now what I've got here is the bowl mounted to the vacuum chuck, and I'm now pulling a little over 20 kilograms. I'm just going to see if this is going to spin true for me. I'm turning the lathe down to very, very slow, starting it up. I'm looking across this surface. It looks pretty smooth. I'm going to just touch it with the handle. You see, it sounds like it's spinning true. I think it's spinning true. Now what I want to do now is go in there. I want to spin faster. I'm going to take it up to about 600. Now this is being held in place only by the vacuum. And the vacuum, if you pull the air out from inside here, which we've done, then you want more air rushing in there. That's what happens. And the air rushing in there will give you about 14 pounds per square inch of the chuck against this bowl. So you've got quite a bit of pressure there. I can't pull it off easily. Excuse me, the 14 pounds comes from the weight of the atmosphere from the top of the stratosphere down to wherever you are above sea level. I'm at 800 feet. This could be about 14 pounds per square inch. So that's quite a bit of force pushing that bowl against this chuck. Now, if I release the vacuum, turn the motor off, it's going to drop right off. So you can get, excuse me, you can get a reserve tank to put on the vacuum system that will give you about 15 seconds of grace after your power goes off or your switch is turned off. It'll give you 15 seconds to pull that bowl off before it just drops off. Now, if I can do this, take a chance on it. I'm going to move this back. I think the PVC is bothering my allergies. I've sharpened this little 40/40 gouge to try to make sure that it's going to be a nice smooth cut. Let's try it. I'm running it up to about 550 or 600. That's 530. For design, I've made this base about 1/3 the diameter of the bowl itself. I like that rule of thirds. You get that from the artist. And I'm going to take a little more off that center. I don't want to have that tab there. I don't need to take a whole lot off this thing. I just have always been afraid of going through the bottom. I've got plenty of wood here, but I don't want to take a chance of going through the bottom. I've done that before, and I'll guarantee you that makes a mess. And if you want to save your bowl, you've then got to fix it. Now this vacuum chuck will take quite a bit of force, but not all the force. So I'm trying to take it gingerly, and this is my first time to use it, and this is a very valuable bowl. This one that I made out of cherry from the Cancer Survivors Park. As I said, I've got about 4 coats of water locks on it. It's really shiny. It's looking good. So now I'm going to take the edge off of it, and I got to move this tailstock out of the way so I can get to it. I think I can get it now. You hear my vacuum chuck running? Careful, careful, careful. I don't want to do anything to snatch that bowl off. I'm being skittish about it because I just don't want to do anything to damage this bowl, and that is not doing quite what I want it to do. Try it one more time with a closed bowl gouge. Now, I would, at this point, sand it. And, darn, it's pretty rough. It's going to take some heavy sanding, and I don't want to do that to it, honestly. But that end grain is busted, it's broken out. So I'm going to have to work with that a little bit to get it to do better. I can try sanding it out, but I think it'd be better to use some other system. But anyway, I'm not going to take up your time to do that. What I'm going to do now is take this off the vacuum chuck. Now the way to do that is just to turn off the vacuum motor or open the relief valve. Open the relief valve. So I hear the vacuum going out. It's down to about 10 kilograms. It's even going down more. I'm going to turn off the vacuum motor. There. Now, you see, the inside is completely undamaged, and the outside I've begun to do some work on it. But that's how this thing works. Make sure that hole is in there. That's how it works, and you see the various ways you can set this thing up. This little hole here is for a Tommy bar. So if you need a way to get that thing off the spindle, I've got a hole drilled in it. So that's it. I hope you learned some things and enjoyed this video. That's all I can do today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.